Yes, cool.
Uh, well, I think one of the
Yes, cool.
one of the things that I just would like to express my gratitude is your curiosity.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that that's also very meaningful to me. And one of the things that the one of the reasons why I'm super curious about other people is because discovering the depth of others is why I've been able to discover such a depth of myself. So I really honor the space when somebody becomes curious about me.
Yeah, really happy to serve that purpose.
Yeah.
So
So
please.
what would you like to know specifically? Well, let's keep going through the depth of the quality of our questions.
All right. I want to know, first of all, when did you start your spiritual and why? So when, not actually not why, how, when and how, because the why is very strong.
Uh so I believe that when I was a young boy,
Yeah,
um my grandfather, he spent a lot of time with me. And during that time and in his final days and things like this, he his energy in his eyes was something that his presence to me was very abundant. It was very meaningful, and I didn't understand it at the time, but I felt super safe. I could play everywhere. So like whether we would go to the soccer field or to the park or whatever the case was, it was always safe. I didn't have to worry about anything. And so I played like loud and I was like playful and I would ask people to play with me. And I remember once he died, I kind of didn't really understand what had happened. Although he wasn't physically with us, I wasn't like sad. I was more like unclear. I didn't understand because I still felt him.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So it was like and I always tell my dad this, like I feel Jajusz, which Jadek in Polish is like grandfather. I feel him all the time, and he's like my dad would always tear up whenever I say these things, and my father like continued that experience in me while I was growing up. So they would always take me to the park and play, and like I would cry or whatever, loud, like whether I was uncomfortable. I remember dad putting me on skates and being scared, like you want to kill me, like just things like really over dramatic and uh this curiosity, became something so profound in my experience that allowed me uh, to to want to understand like, who am I? What am I here for to do? Why am I here? What's the reason? Because this meaningful connection that I had in my grandfather was still deeply felt in me. So I saw things in others that I didn't know that many others would see it. And so that was kind of like these questions of of deeper meaningful, like why am I here? What am I here to do? Was what got me curious about the experience, if that makes sense.
does make sense. So how old were you when your grandfather died? God rest his soul. Actually,
For
4. I understand. So basically, because of that connection, that got you on this path of wanting to connect with others, the depth of their soul, which is very beautiful. How did that translate into your life, into your business? And when did you discover Tony and the spiritual? when was your first contact with the spiritual world, literally
So
spiritual practices?
like my parents, I was raised Catholic, and I hated church. I didn't like the construct of the limitations. I felt like it was incongruent. I hated going to to the church, and I didn't enjoy it. Although when we were singing or there were moments of like prayer that were meaningful, like Christmas time and like some of the Christmas carols, I would remember I would have tears in my eyes and I would get just really emotional to these types of experiences. And I liked going to the church in terms of when we weren't talking or the priest wasn't talking. And I like the peace and the serenity of it. I just didn't like when I say church, I didn't like
Service.
the story of around it, right? And so
Yeah.
I sensed just something lack because I remember like people would go to church or they would compare about what how much money people have or what they're wearing or what cars they're driving. And then I remember, people talking about people's different religions or skin color. And I would like, that's not God. That's that's fucking limitation. And I would get triggered and I would get angry and I would express myself. I would say that that's not right. This is bullshit. And I would be very vocal about it. And I remember uh like arguing with my parents lots about this. And then I remember realizing or doing that, like going to these churches or sorry, schools and stuff like this. And then um I remember feeling so alone or like lonely, not alone, alone, lonely. And that's when I started using drugs. Or first I started selling them because I wanted to make money because I started to believe that the external reality of having monetary benefit was way more valuable than who I was. So I started selling drugs, and then I started following a path of like, hey, if money is important, then more important than me, then what do I really bring to the table? And then I started using them
Mhm.
until I became a full-blown crack addict by the age of 16 and disappearing, for almost 3 years, 6 months at a time, till the age of 19, till I went to rehab. And that rehab in Bonneville Indian Métis Center was what really healed my soul because I spent a lot of time with Indigenous elders, really going deep into universal intelligence and spending time in temazcals and like sweat lodges and sweetgrass and very ancient ceremony and listening to the wisdom of these elders that have utilized ancient wisdom into their daily practice. And so that got me into a whole different level of curiosity that I thought was only for. And then my parents after that experience took me to Medjugorje in Bosnia Herzegovina. I went there to go experience the land and the space. Um, and these were kind of the first deeper, meaningful experiences that I started to really pay attention to. But it was really the question of my father, if you can go and do this for your future self, go to rehab, was the moment in time when something outside of me touched me and observed me and said, this is not about you anymore. This is about you doing what you need to do to follow a greater path. So heal yourself, or else, you're not gonna fully realize. Because my thought process at that time, before I went to rehab, was I'm either gonna end up in jail, imprisoned or incarcerated, or dead.
Yeah. which must have been hard for like an 18-year-old or 19-year-old to think that. I'm really sorry you went through that experience.
It's amazing experience to be able to walk through hell and discover oneself.
Yeah. What made you start your business?
So I was
After
throughout
all
the
this
course,
happened?
yeah,
Yeah.
throughout the course of my life, I went back to university and I met a girl, and I went, because I wanted to then like I still was discovering myself, and I went back to university. So I went for accounting and finance to got my bachelor's degree, and during that time, it was 5 years in school where I really learned to listen to, the story of school. How do you benefit, like accounting, finance, business perspectives, these type of experiences. And what I love most about school was like the student body. So I loved taking care of McEwen University students or business students. So I would create events that would benefit them. And so it would be easier for them to create a job. Or we had tax clinics where we would help the community or inner city to get their tax done, or tax clinic. So I would have different students and finance professionals come and meet the students so that they could have an easier time getting a job. So I became very quickly the VP of external communications of our McEwen Accounting Club, and then I did the same thing, and then I kept doing it, and eventually they asked me to become the president. And so
Nice.
that project, that legacy project, continues to live on in my university at McEwen, where I really built, just a lot of relationships with the dean, with the president, with a lot of the professors, and these professors, some of them are uh, some of my advisors, and they help me behind the scenes to this day. So, and just like mentors that have been there for me in times of struggle or uncertainty as I continue to build. So, business became a tool for me, although I didn't really know what that looked like. Ever since I was a little boy, I saw myself as like this business guy and like wanting to like serve people and use it as good. And then when I became went into the corporate world, it didn't like I got, I had multiple different offers from multiple different firms. And when I got there, my creativity and my like wanting to create change became stagnant because they put me in a box and they expected me to be just like everyone else. And so after 3 months of articling, I quit. I said, I don't care how much time I've spent in this schooling. If this is where the limitation ends, I'll go and figure it out myself because this is clearly not for me.
And congratulations. Good decision.
Yeah, thank you.
Two more questions that I want to end with because I see we only had half an hour. By the way, I got so much value out of this. Like you'll see more, I will send you the copies. You put them in, tell me what you think. Um, First is what how did you get into the Tony Robbins world, and what was that date with destiny transformation that Chris was talking about? And the second question is, what does the balanced ecosystem do now? What's next for it? Who does it serve, and why?
So the reason I got into Tony was because we connected in different ways, whether it was online or different, but I connected to him as the soul. The reason because of his ability to be a role model of what's possible. And so what I recognized in his journey was that it was he was living by certain principles that really aligned to my soul, to my inner being. And I resonated with the feeling that he was unapologetically himself. I resonated with the feeling that he owned his value, that he didn't allow external circumstances to limit him. And I needed somebody because I didn't understand the path ahead. I needed somebody that was able to mirror that energy to me so that I could fully appreciate that in myself. And so, multiple different times at multiple different events, he had been holding the energy, or he moved me to the front, at my first ever UPW after I said, "Hey, Tony, like remember me from another event?" And that following day, they ended up moving me to the front. Jonathan Cardozo moved me to the front, and I got to sit in his like, chairman invited seats. And that 3 days that I got to sit at the front with all these plats that I had no idea what was going on, I just fully gave my soul, all of it, into that experience, and that became the beginning of my journey with Tony because I signed up for platinum with total fear of what the money system, and the value that I was perceived around, like, wow, I can't afford this. However, I only have enough for the down payment. I'm going to use that money to invest in myself because if I don't invest in myself, I will never recognize the limitless value and the priceless expression of my soul. And so I just sense that because a man has been doing it for 40 years at that time already, uh, then I clearly have something to learn from him. And uh, that this is a man that I really want to, model in terms of his integrity, his ethics, his devotion to something greater than himself, his choices, his way of being. Like there's just so much in his principles that I align with. And so as a result, I was always after that every single day, all out in all the events, full front row, and I would just like he would always say the way we do one thing, the way we do everything, how we play the game here, how we play in this room is how we play life. And so I would just fucking all my energy humanly possible consistently devote to that space, and then I would turn around and I would lift everybody like I was his like his uh apprentice, and I would just lift people behind me because I was in the front. When I turn around, I just fucking go all out. And it was really meaningful to me. And
Amazing.
at that event in Cairns in Australia, he got sick and he wasn't able to come out and he was not feeling well. And he came out like he was in mad pain, and the whole like his like Sage was really worried about him. I remember seeing Sage later and just telling her how much I love her and I love Tony, and I don't know why I have so much passion. And she's just like, Eric, what you see in him, you have in you. And it was just for me super profound to hear her say that. And and then um and then for him to come out later in the wheelchair was just, he like we really shared each other's space and honored each other in a really beautiful way. And I had the opportunity to, while he was not there, to share my mission, to be loving and courageous wisdom and to empower myself and others. And I anchored that space with 45 minutes of the community really helping reflect how I can embody it more. What do I need to do? Their hallucinations. And I got coaching from the whole community to be even more embodied, even more supported, even more in my essence, so that as a result, I could anchor that in my body, in my spirit, in my soul. So I could, and I use that now all the time. Whenever there was an uncertainty or challenge over the last 6 years, that was the anchor that kept me going whenever there was something external to me. So that was Date with Destiny. And then of course from that I continued to grow, as you know. So
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great. And what's next
well,
for
the
the
like you said, so yeah, the balanced ecosystem. is really about harmonizing this conscious economic ecosystem so that we really create meaningful change and redefine the essence of business. Because business cultivated with influence, momentum, purpose, so that we can focus on when adversity does come, we can create and transform that into an empowering story and encouraging others to work in harmony of each other so that as a result, we can recognize what the true movement and the true potential is. Because from this state of behavior, we can always recognize that the magic that we create is actually by taking meaningful action with grace, integrity, and curiosity. And from that evolves our ability to listen to one another because all of us are infinitely valuable and we all have a meaningful place on this planet. We just by our existence. So utilizing the people that are recognizing and wanting to create more impact for a shared purpose, a shared vision that allows us to really create a more meaningful infrastructure that is focused on sustainable, meaningful action that as a result creates all of the profitability because we can be extremely profitable. It just needs to be focused on change, on impact, on service. And that, like Napoleon Hill talks about in his book, The Laws of Success, the divine economy. When we give more than we ever expect to receive, our life will truly be fulfilled. And Tony talks about that. The meaning for the reason for living is giving. So the balance ecosystem and what we do in the business is really to move towards that shared purpose so that we continue to cultivate that and using that in any infrastructure so that people don't need to reinvent the wheel. If somebody like Tony or somebody else that has built a system that is really empowering, why do we try to compete with that? That's such bullshit. We don't need to compete. We can collaborate. We can stand on each other's shoulders and then everybody gets to do what they love because really fundamentally what we're here to do is build the playground, which is planet Earth, so that our kids and our kids can really shine like the sun so that we don't need to focus on what we don't have. We just focus on what we already have. And then on top of that, we can build because most people feel unseen, unheard, misunderstood, not appreciated. And the truth is that we just take the time to listen. That's what happens in business. And business ultimately, as you know, Codrin, is a spiritual journey. So if we take the choices in our business, that then magnifies into our family, into our community, and fundamentally, it's the responsibility of the leader because the biggest chokehold on any business is the psychology of the leader.
It's true. Thank you so much for this, Eric. You're truly a beautiful. You should make some of the calls about yourself because you do have something to share and you can move people and you can inspire people. It's just that so far you've been more of a link between these multiple parts that kind of work together. But I mean, what I see right now, but I do think that your voice also needs to be heard. Also something that the YouTube link and I would.
I didn't hear that last part. Sorry, my apologies.
I said, thank you so much. Share me the link of the YouTube link with this, and I will make sure that this is heard in the copy. I'll be back.
I love you, brother. I appreciate you, and
Brother,
I think
cheers.
I really appreciate you taking the time, my friend.
Of course. My pleasure. And send me that email when you have the chance, please.
Yes, 100%. Big love. Talk to you in a
Good
bit.
luck. Good luck with the call.
Thank you. Ciao.
Cheers.